I'm incredibly blessed and fortunate to have Nate Boyer with us today. Without Jason Van Camp, who's on our board, and without my good friend Brett Hughes, I probably wouldn't know Nate. But thanks to those two great guys, I've gotten the chance to know Nate. So for anyone who doesn't know, you talk about an extraordinary life. Nate was a Green Beret. Then he was a University of Texas, go Longhorns, walk on, played in the NFL for the Seattle Seahawks. He's the co-founder of Merging Vets and Players, and he's a very active actor and filmmaker. So we are incredibly blessed to have him with us today. Kathy, do the honors. The anticipation is killing me. You got it, Kath? All right. We'll wait for that. I've got a contest for everybody. If you want to win this beautiful MVP hat, Nate might have one on now. I can't tell. It might be backwards. If you want to win this hat and a signed copy of my third book, Standing O Salute, where all the proceeds go to the Special Operations Warrior Foundation, here's the question that you need to answer. And you need to put it in the chat. You got to be quick. If you take Nate's number that he wore at the University of Texas, and you take Nate's number that he wore with the Seattle Seahawks, and you add those two numbers together, what number do you get? First person to get it right in the chat wins the hat and a signed copy of Standing O Salute.
I know.
All right, Kathy, do you have the video? Let's go. No volume. This is take 3. Nate, you're an actor. You're used to this stuff.
No, I'm a one-take wonder.
All right. So first of all, I want to say that this has not happened before, but earlier today, Scott said, "You got the video for Nate ready?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Good luck." So please hold.
So I think Sal might have been the first one to get it. And Sal is a former Green Beret, and I know was mentored a bit by Nate. So pretty cool. So Sal, first of all, welcome.
Hey, what's up, guys? Very glad to be here. Thank you so much.
You got it. Kath, are we going to be able to do this or no? We'll just skip it.
No, we got it.
All right. Thank you, Mike Perlow, for the intro. Nate, I hope the intro was worth it. We had to wait a little bit for that, but welcome. Thanks for joining us, brother.
Yeah, of course. That's pretty cool. That's one of my favorite songs, actually.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
There's this little bar in South Philly called the Rosewood Bar, and it's actually the place. If you've ever seen Invincible, the movie about Vince
Yeah.
McCall. By the way, Vince should be on this show. I'm buddies with him, so we'll talk
he's a good
offline.
dude.
Yeah, he's a good dude. But anyway, that was the original bar. The movie, they shot it at a different place, but the real bar was that one that he'd worked at a bit before his time with the Eagles. And that song is on the jukebox there, and it's like the most played song. It's hilarious. You walk in,
I love it.
everybody just drinks
for the
Yingling, and there's like clouds of smoke, and then the Monday Night Football anthem comes on. It's hilarious.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. I have so many questions for you, Nate. A lot of them are your why behind this kind of extraordinary life that you've created for yourself. How many people, special forces, Green Beret, walk on at the University of Texas, Seahawks, acting. But let's start with kind of your why. Why did you join the military, and why specifically did you choose, like Sal, to be a Green Beret?
Well, so I joined in 2004, signed up in 2004, and I believe the 18 X-ray program started in 2003. It may have been introduced in 2002, but I think the first class going through was in 2003. And what that was you didn't have to have prior service time. You didn't have to be part of the conventional Army prior to go try out, to basically go to Special Forces assessment and selection. You could come in off the street if you met certain requirements. So, I believe at the time you were supposed to be, not everybody, but most people were at least a little bit older. So like over 21 or so, maybe had some college. And then you took like a psych eval and a language aptitude test along with the ASVAB and a physical exam and all this stuff. And if you pass all those things, then after basic training and airborne school, you could go straight into Special Forces selection. And if you make it, then you start your year and a half or so long journey to hopefully become a Green Beret. But the reality was most people that got that contract signed up, wouldn't even go to selection. They'd either sort of bow out on their own prior, or something just wouldn't work out, and which is totally fine, but they would go to different units, the needs of the Army. So I think from my class, there was about 145 of us from my basic training battalion, or not battalion, company, sorry, that had the same contract as me. And I think 11 of us made it all the way through. So it was a recruiting tool, really, more than anything. But, I joined, when I signed up, I was 23. 9/11 had happened a few years prior, and I'd thought about the military, but didn't pull the trigger on it, so to speak. And for various reasons, I didn't have a lot of confidence, didn't think I was the right guy for the job, didn't want somebody's life in my hands, didn't know if that was, or believed that was, what I was capable of. I just didn't think I was the right person for that. So I didn't sign up until I found out about this contract. And it was also on the heels of a relief work trip I'd done over in the Darfur in Western Sudan. And that trip really changed my life because for many reasons, but one of those reasons was I had never really truly got out of my comfort zone and done and attempted to do something that I was pretty sure wasn't possible. And I just kind of went all in on it and basically flew myself over to, the Darfur in the midst of a genocide in 2004, and kind of talked my way into doing some relief work and working at these camps, because they weren't allowing people to just come volunteer, and people weren't really wanting to do that because it was a war zone, and I just kind of made it happen. And through that trip, which I desperately needed because I was putting myself through some personal stuff and just not being very good to myself and down a path that was not healthy. So I just kind of said, I need to find a way over there, and I need to be a part of doing something good and being helpful. And I'd read about what was going on there, and I just said, I'm going to go. I'm just going to figure it out. So once I got there, I was able to volunteer for a couple months, really opened my eyes to a lot of things, changed my perspective on a lot of things. And soon after, I would find out about this 18 X-ray program. And that's when I made the decision. You know what? I just did this because I went all in on it and I took the steps necessary and I just showed up and gave it everything I had, I can keep doing that. You know, I mean, I can't control a lot of things, but I can control my effort, and luckily I live in the place and have the opportunity to follow my dreams if I have any, and kind of go after things like this. So that's what brought me in. That's kind of a long roundabout story a bit, but the military was something that was in the back of my head for quite a while, since my senior year in high school, but just didn't feel right. Didn't feel like the right opportunity until I find out about this opportunity to go straight into the special forces, who, the motto De Oppresso Libera, which means to free the oppressed, really spoke to me, but also it's the foreign internal defense. It's not just, going after high value targets and kicking doors down and all the cool stuff we think about when we think about a Green Beret, like John Rambo and the A-Team and, all that. It's the humanitarian side and working with indigenous forces and trying, sometimes futilely, to build up a country and a military to defend themselves, and with the hopes of them having an opportunity, or at least a chance at the freedoms that we get to experience here. So anyway, all of those reasons were why the special forces.
Incredible. What's unbelievable, Nate, is to hear you say now, knowing all that you've accomplished, that at one point you lacked confidence, you weren't sure that you were the guy for it, and that you needed to get out of your comfort zone. That's amazing, because at 31, I think you tell Mac Brown, "Hey, I'm gonna go get my master's degree at the University of Texas, one of the best schools in the country, and I'm gonna try to play football at one of the most iconic football programs ever." And he's like, "You've never even played football. Like, to my knowledge, you didn't even play high school football." And
no, I never played before. I played, on Thanksgiving Day with the two-hand touch or whatever. But no, I never played football growing up. I played other sports and regretted not playing, but it was.
And you wanted to be a long snapper, which is incredibly hard to do at a high level. And I think you told him, "Well, when I'm in Afghanistan, I'm bringing a football and I'm going to figure it out." And then at 31, you become a walk-on who plays like 3 years straight, like 37 games or something insane like that, as the long snapper for the University of Texas Longhorns. That sounds like a guy with a lot of confidence. What took you down that path?
Yeah, I mean, so I actually walked on initially at 29. Hadn't played before, regretted it. That was the main reason I wanted to go back and try and play football. I had this huge regret, which it sounds silly because it's just, you didn't play a sport. Oh, poor guy. But football was a big part of my life growing up. I grew up in the Bay Area. I was a big 49ers fan. We were very good when I was, when I was growing up. We won 4 or 5 Super Bowls. The first one, I think, was the year I was born. And so my heroes initially were, Joe Montana and Jerry Rice and Ronnie Lott and Roger Craig and Tom Rathman and the San Francisco 49ers. And then, I kind of just, when I was real young, I was a bit of a late bloomer. So I didn't, my mom was like not really steering me in that direction. She was like, "Oh no, soccer and baseball is better for you," which I really loved. I mean, I love playing those too, but football was like my great white buffalo. And then I got to high school, and same thing, same issue with, just not believing in myself and thinking, well, these kids have been playing since they're 8. Like, I'm not going to catch up. I'm 14 or whatever. So, and I don't want to ride the bench or get cut. That's embarrassing, so I just chickened out. I just, once again, just a lack of confidence, and it bothered me. It stayed with me for a long time. And I was in the military. I was in Iraq, actually. when I was 27, 28, soon to be 29. I'm coming up on reenlistment and had to make the decision of what I was going to do next. And, I decided to finally go to college. And I hadn't gone before. Well, that's not totally true. After high school, I took some classes. I took some firefighting classes at a junior college in San Diego, and I ended up dropping out and working on a fishing boat. And not knowing at the time how important it was that I dropped out, because it would have messed with my eligibility to play college football if I would have finished even one semester. Once you complete that semester with those credits, your clock go. You have a 5-year clock. Everybody does to play college sports, and it doesn't start until you go to college as a full-time student. You could be 80 years old and go to college and join a team if you're good enough, if you can make it. And so I dropped out of those classes, and they didn't go against my record. They didn't count as being a full-time student. So I still had all my eligibility. And I just made the decision to go to school, and I was going to try out for the team wherever I went. And I picked Texas because I was on deployment that year. The second half of the deployment kind of went through, we were going through a lot of change that was challenging within the team and within the region we were operating. We went from having a lot of autonomy to, needing provincial approval for all of our missions. And there was a lot of corruption, and it was just very frustrating. At the same time, the girl I had been dating before I left broke up with me halfway through that deployment. And that's not fun because you're out there with a 12-man team in the middle of, Iraq, and you're not going to not think about that constantly. And so I had all these things going on, and thank God it was football season, because football really pulled me out of that hole. When I would get back from a mission or whatever I was doing, if football was on Armed Forces Network, I was watching it. It was kind of my escape. And by the end of that deployment, I just was like, I'm going to go try and play. If I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And I still have this regret. So why not? And I chose the University of Texas because it was a great school. I'd been to Austin once and I loved it. And it was at the time and now again, thankfully, we are back. I'm going to say that. The football program is doing well, and it's kind of a legendary place to go and play. And so I just told myself when I was over there, I'm going to try. So I started those last few months in Iraq, and eventually I went on to Israel later that year, and still had to finish up almost a year of military service. I was training, I was learning to run routes and trying to teach myself how to backpedal and lifting weight, trying to put some weight on, and just preparing for this opportunity. And then I found out I got into the University of Texas when I was in Israel, about 3 or 4 months before school was about to start. And I came back and had about 80 days of terminal leave, which meant I had saved up 80 days of leave because I never took leave, really. And I just put that on the back end of my last couple of months in the military, so I could go down and start that semester, and tried out for the team, made it as a safety. Within the first semester, I realized there's no way not no way, but it's highly unlikely I will ever set foot on the field as a safety. I just don't have the speed or the size, and these guys are fast and it's tough. So what else can I do? I'm on the team. Like, is there another job? Is there another position that I can play meaningful snaps and contribute? And that's when I discovered long snapping. And yeah, you were right. I was 31 by the time I started or tried out for the position anyway. I started snapping when I was 30, like learning it. But then, had walked on at 29, started snapping at 30. By the time I was 31, I won the starting job just upon returning from Afghanistan, and, going through training camp and, just winning the position. And it's a thankless job, which I was very used to from time in the military, and many people can understand that. Not that people don't say thank you for your service, and they're very thankful for that. But when you're working, it's like yeah, of course you're supposed to do that. That's your job. You know, there's not too many pats on the back, and that's okay. That's okay. But you are part of something important, and your job matters, and all the attention to detail and being specific about, what you are contributing is super important, because if my snap's not perfect and I don't block my guy, that punt's going to get blocked. It's going to affect the game in a big way. 70% of teams that block a punt in a game win the game. It's a stat, so everyone always tries to block a punt, because even if you're the underdog, the odds of you winning the game goes way up. And I was doing it on field goals and extra points as well. And yeah, it was like that grip and stance and aim small, miss small, and slow is smooth is fast. All these things I had been trained to do when I was learning to shoot a pistol, which I'd never done before the military, applied to long snapping a football in a different way. But it was like that focus was very much the same. And there's 102,000 people in the stands, and you've got to like stay right here in the moment. It's just you and this football and the target back there, and none of this other stuff can matter. Time in the military and time overseas helped prepare me mentally for those kind of things. And yeah, and so I played there started for 3 years at Texas. And just when I thought football was over, I had an opportunity at the next level with the Seahawks briefly.
And you became, at 34, I think, the oldest rookie in the NFL. What was it like running out of the tunnel with that American flag?
It was cool. I mean, not only oldest rookie in the NFL, at least in the modern era. I think back in the day there was some older. There we go. There were some older players, but I was the oldest guy on the team too. That was the crazier part to me. I gotta get to this locker room in Seattle. The next oldest guy is 33, and he's the punter. You know what I mean? Everybody was super young. But yeah, that picture is that was quite a day. I mean, I'd been with the team for about 5 months through the off season, pretty much expecting to, or at least preparing to get cut at any moment. And it didn't happen through OTAs. It didn't happen through, rookie mini camp or mini camp with the rest of the team. And then training camp came and went, and it didn't happen. And we get to the preseason, and it's the first preseason game, and I find out that I'm dressing out for it, and I'm going to play the entire second half as the long snapper. And then right before the game, the equipment manager came up to me and said, I noticed in college, for all your games, you would lead the team out of the tunnel with the flag. I assume that's because you were in the military. And I said, yeah, I mean, Texas and a lot of schools have this tradition of a player, leading the team out. And oftentimes that player has family in the military or something like that, some kind of connection to that why, or maybe even in law enforcement or maybe first responders, whatever it is. Like there's like, if these people's folks do something like that, or their brother or sister, they'll be like, hey, do you want to run the team out of the tunnel this week with the flag? Well, since I was actually in the military, and while I was in college, I was still in the Guard, so I was actively serving in some capacity. They asked me to do it every game. So that was kind of a tradition. It would help settle me into the game, honestly. I'd go out there and stand in the tunnel. I'm nervous about playing, and it's maybe we're playing a big game, and there's always a sellout in the crowd. And then you don't want to let your teammates down. You got all these things going on. And then I'm standing out there with this flag, and it like takes my thoughts to other places and other people, and kind of settles me in and keeps things in perspective, and just remembering that it's a game, and it's supposed to be fun. And yes, you want to do your best, and don't let your teammates down and all that stuff, but don't put too much pressure on yourself here. Like it's going to be okay. And you're out here to entertain at some level, you know what I mean? So, yeah. So then the smoke would start coming in, and I'd run out and always worry about, all I'd worry about at that time was not falling or dropping the flag, because that was a big no-no, not bowling over a cheerleader on accident as I come out of the smoke, And so then for this game, this equipment manager, he in Seattle asked me if I wanted to do it. And of course I said yes. And I took the flag and I stood in that tunnel, and instead of smoke up in Seattle, they had the flames coming out, fire shooting. And I run out of the tunnel, and it's like the sun is shining and it's also raining because it's Seattle in like late August, early September. And it's a sellout crowd because the team had been to back-to-back Super Bowls, even for a preseason game. And it was just like a crazy moment. And then I get to the sideline and the anthem starts playing. And I got emotional just thinking about my, friends of mine that were still serving. A really close friend of mine, probably my best friend in the military, he passed away in 2012, who had helped encourage me to go play football and to go to a place like Texas, and to not sell myself short. And then, yeah, just thinking about people, not just veterans, but just people in general that maybe maybe just don't feel that confidence or belief in themselves that they can just go for it, and chase whatever American dreams they may have. It's heartbreaking to like hear that stuff, and especially heartbreaking for me in the vet community, just because that's my community. Yep. And I'm always like, man, you were willing to do this, but like, why do you think you can't? And I think that goes for everybody. And I mean, I hate hearing that. I hate hearing people living with regret, or the whole like, yeah, but mantra of yeah, I'd love to do that, but I here's why I can't. Here's all the reasons I can't. And whether those are real obstacles or not, at the end of the day, they're just obstacles, which are opportunities to do something great. So there's a reason they're there. There's a reason you are quantifying them and focusing on them because it's something you want to do on the other side of that. So like, don't let those things get in your way. Don't limit yourself because you think you can't, or you're not the right man or woman for the job. And, somebody told you at some point in your life that this is why you're not the right person for it, or that whatever. We've got a million reasons, and we'll just hold on to those because it's easier to do that than to go for the thing. But it just because it's easier doesn't mean it's better. And it just, yeah, all those things, like I think about those often, but especially in this moment, just those kind of things ran through my head because I was thinking of 13-year-old Nate, and even 23-year-old Nate, who was, afraid to try, afraid to go for it until he just did. And I started crying. And after the anthem ended, a few of the players had noticed and came up to me. And these people include like Marshawn Lynch and Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson, like some of their, stars. And they all came up and, gave me a hug. And it was just a really cool moment. And it made me think of, the younger me that had all these NFL heroes from the 49ers. And now it's like these people that are embracing me are heroes of some other young person, and this is just such a surreal moment. Yep. But that, it was through that. And then once football ended is why I co-founded MVP with Jay Glazer and wanted to continue to encourage. We work with vets and athletes, but we just want to encourage people to, remember some of the things that you have endured and gone through and overcame in your life, and continue to, push yourself in that direction. I think transitions are tough generally, and a lot of most vets and athletes, their careers end very young, and you feel like you've peaked and you'll never be great again. And that's a tough thing, but that's a common thing for just people in general as well, to feel like, well, I can't do that now. It's way too late. I got my degree in X, so I can't do Y. That doesn't make sense. And it's like, well, do you want to do Y? Like, what do you love? Yeah, of course. But I didn't, I already went down this path. And it's like, well, who cares? Change your path, start over. Like it doesn't matter. You can do it, and you can start at any time, and you're going to probably bring things to the table that other people won't in that arena because you've experienced things in a different way. And there's value in that. If my dad told me this once, and I believe him 100%. If I would have played football as a teenager, I don't think I would have tried to play in college. I think I would have either been too intimidated or been like, like that regret was a gift in some way, because it, something it was bothering me enough to just be like, screw it, I'm just gonna go for it, and I'm gonna go for it as big as I can. But if I didn't have that regret, I don't think I would have gone and tried to play. And I don't know, I would have done something else, but like, who knows? I mean, I'm where I'm at now because of the path that I took. And so it's good that I didn't play. It's good that I had that regret. That's a good thing, that those, sometimes those dark places are important, and they can serve us too. Things that we go through, losing people or losing opportunities or whatever it is. There's always something on the other side of that. And I don't say the phrase everything happens for a reason, and I don't even know if it does, but everything happens regardless. And you can kind of put that meaning on it yourself if you like sometimes. And for those that have lost people, or I mean, we've all lost people in our lives. Like, the best way, I think, to honor them is to chase your dreams and the way that you live your life. And that's something I try to tell a lot of vets, but just people generally. I think there's always, you talked about your why earlier, and it's like there's always a why out there in everything.
Yep.
There really is. And it can be internal too. It doesn't have to be for something or someone else. It can be for yourself. But it's always there. You just have to explore it, and then just go for it. Who cares? Like, we're all going to die anyway. And, I mean, at the end of the day, like, that's the reality,
Yeah.
So what are we waiting for?
I love your mindset. And we'll get all the information on MVP to all of our members. So we have 700 members in 34 countries. We'll make sure we get all that information. I'd love to talk about your acting, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, and we'll have to touch on this quickly because I know tons of people have questions. So based on your background in the military, and based on your background on the football field, uh, the Army Times published an open letter to Colin Kaepernick that you had written when he had made the choice not to stand for the national anthem. Um, and then you got a message from Colin that he wanted to meet you, I believe, in San Diego, and you had a sit down. And I think your take on this, and Kathy, if you could show this picture, this is probably one of the most iconic pictures of Colin Kaepernick with Nate standing right next to him. Just walk us through that quickly. I'm sure people are going to have questions, but it's just such a fascinating time in America, and the fact that you played such a big role in that and have such a unique perspective, I think is incredibly interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I'd written this open letter after it was about the week that the story had come out about him sitting on the bench during the anthem, and there was a bunch of people up in arms about it, and some people in quite a bit of support. Keep in mind, this is in 2016 in September, and so it's like the main headline every day is Trump versus Hillary, and this is what's going on in our country. It's just the division and people not wanting to have conversations, and people very upset, and like the social media is already, I mean, it's already been a thing at that point, but it was becoming an ugly thing in a lot of ways, and it just was not a super healthy time. And I don't know how much it's changed since then. But it was and it was frustrating. I think it's frustrating for me as a vet, feeling like we fought for everybody, and feeling like we've got these two sides that are trying to often take our narrative and make it part of, their proving or their points, their, their arguing points in whatever discussion, and I just didn't like feeling, co-opted or whatever. And I had a bunch of people reach out to me when he was first sitting, because he'd done an interview and it was taken way out of context. It's an 18-minute interview. If you watch the whole thing, he explains quite a bit about why he's doing this, talks about his respect for the military and like all of these things. But of course, the media, they don't want that. They want the little hot takes and 3 to 5 second soundbite that is divisive. And so that's what ran all over the headlines. And it was like, basically the narrative from some people was that he just, is anti-America and, against the military and all these things. And, or at least the military community, the veteran community, military veterans specifically. And so I had a bunch of people hit me up saying, you need to do something. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm not going to, I can't tell this guy to stand, just because that's how I feel. And eventually I wrote an open letter to the Army Times, because they hit me up twice, honestly, asking me to do it. And I didn't want to go on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC and like get in a debate with somebody. So I just wrote this open letter to Colin, and it kind of went viral. Colin ended up reading it and wanted to meet. And so we did. The next day, actually, down in San Diego, they were playing the Chargers in their final preseason game. And we sat down in the lobby of the team hotel with Eric Reed, who was the other guy in that picture on a knee. And the three of us just talked about football and the military and everything going on in our country. And, he didn't want to offend people in the military. He was very much sensitive to that, and he even made sure and told me several times that he was grateful for what I was a part of. And one of his best friends was a Navy SEAL and all these things. And so through our conversation, we sort of came up with this idea of taking a knee instead of sitting on the bench, because it was a little more proactive and it was alongside his teammates. And, he had committed to not standing, and that was what he was going to do. He's like, I'm not going to stand until I see change. And I said, you have every right to do that. That's a right that I and many others fought for, First Amendment and whatnot. And so that night he took a knee, and I stood next to him, and then it kind of snowballed from there as far as the kneeling stuff. And it's not like that healed anything. There was still quite a bit of debate, and there still is today, and all that. But that's where the kneeling came from, just a conversation with the three of us down in San Diego.
It's an iconic moment. So we have people itching to ask you questions. So everybody, I will say, just for time's sake, please keep your questions super short, so that we can get in as many as we can. We're going to go to the good Colonel first. Colonel Scott Heathman, you're up.
Hey, thank you, Nate. It's great to see you, and your stories are absolutely amazing. I've been following you for a while. I get asked this question a lot ever since I left uniform. There's not a lot of jobs that translate from foreign internal defense and advise and assist to the outside world, right? In the civilian equivalent of that. But I wanted to ask, what skills and mindset in uniform translated so much to your everyday life even today?
I think the big one is doing your job for the man or woman on your left and right, and so like making sure to keep in mind with everything that you're doing, if I do, what's most important is doing my job to make sure that others are successful as well. And it also like holds you accountable and puts a little pressure on you to do the best that you can, because other people's potential livelihoods or safety or whatever that is at stake. And I think that's the number one thing for me, just to make sure that I've got other people on my mind when we're doing whatever I'm doing. and remembering that my choices affect the group at large, affect the mission at large, not to put undue pressure on ourselves, I think, but just a reminder of like these little decisions can have big effects. And I think that's something that has definitely carried over. But also another big one is just, I know I've talked about it a bunch on this call, but just not allowing either invisible obstacles or limitations or whatever these things are, or that voice in your head that's not you. That's just, I don't know what that is, but we all understand it. We've all heard it, but it's definitely not us. It's just, it's up to us whether we respond to it or listen to it or acknowledge. I think it's important to acknowledge, because oftentimes I feel like that voice continues to tell me no, or I'm not good enough, and kind of plants that imposter syndrome seed, because it's something that I actually want to do. So that's how I often know I'm on the right track, I think, with what I'm doing, because obviously there's this anxiety and fear of failure and all these things happening because I care about it, because I actually want to do it. So that keeps me heading in that direction, and remembering that there maybe is no impossible mission at some level. Like, anything is possible. And we were often given instructions or expectations in the military, and we didn't really understand how to meet that desired effect. We would look at it and be like, I don't, like, with what we're given right now, I don't know how we're going to do this, and we're going to have to figure it out. And then we did, or at least tried, and did our best to solve that problem, and did it collaboratively, with a group, not doing things alone is another one. But I think all of that, from my time in the military, I wouldn't have the application of these things, or at least the attempted application of these things. I have to credit with that time in service, and having a lot of great mentors, and just people I looked up to, and sometimes not mentors, sometimes mentees that taught me something. I think that's
like Sal,
important,
who's right next to you there. We're gonna go to Jamie, who's got a great background, which is the movie poster for MVP. So if you haven't seen Nate's movie MVP, check it out. It's awesome. Jamie, you're up.
Nate, good to see you again. And so you, obviously, I've gotten to hear a lot of your story, totally amazing. But one of the things that stands out for me is you are incredibly generous with your time, with everything. I mean, you're always giving back. You've always got this mission to help, helping with MVP or whatever it is you're doing. And you've just wowed this group. I think you have some hardcore lifelong fans here. How can we best support you? Is it watching the movie, getting you speaking engagements, donating to MVP, following you, all of the above? How do we support you? How do we get back to you?
Yeah,
I know you hate this question. Sorry.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think first of all, the giving of time and energy and whatever that is, and I mean, all those things they involve stuff that I enjoy doing, and I like being inspired, and I hope to inspire some people sometimes, at least. It makes me feel good. But pretty much all of those things, even the giving, like or the showing up and the volunteering and the work in the nonprofit space, like I'm getting something out of that. You know what I mean? I'm not going to say that's transactional, because I don't think that's what it is. It's not that kind of relationship, but it's absolutely fulfilling. And and I just we all need that. We all need to feel like we are making at least some bit of difference in somebody's life, and we want to belong and all of these things, but I need to feel purposeful. And so this is one of the things that makes me feel purposeful. But yeah, I mean, the movie is a big one for me, because so MVP, which I mentioned earlier, this nonprofit that stands for Merging Vets and Players. We bring together combat vets and former pro athletes and just help them find purpose and identity when they lose the uniform. During COVID, I directed that film, and I do it. I'm acting in it. I'm producing it. I co-wrote it. I did the post-production supervising. I mean, I didn't have to pay any of those people in those specific roles. So that's how I made the movie on the budget we had in the middle of COVID. But it tells a story of how MVP started. First of all, we did a great job. Like, the team was unbelievable that showed up for this and helped us, helped me see the vision through. But there's a big piece of me in that as well. I brought a lot of my own personal experiences to that. The story's not about me. It's about a Marine who was living in a homeless shelter and a former NFL player who both have lost their identity and are trying to figure out life moving forward. And, it's based on a true story. We shot the thing on location in the middle of Los Angeles, where MVP started. All the veterans portrayed on screen are played by actual vets. All the department heads, except for the cinematographer, were veterans. And then a lot of athletes play themselves. Michael Strahan and Howie Long and Tony Gonzalez and Randy Couture. These people are all in it, playing a version of themselves. And we just we figured it out with very little money in the movie space. But this is what I'm doing now, and this is what I love to do now, is like storytelling and finding ways to inspire through film and television. And I've got a few other projects in the works right now. Some of them are pure entertainment, and some of them have, a cause or a sort of an important message behind it. But either way, like, pure entertainment's important too. I definitely enjoy that. So yeah, please go watch MVP. It's available on Amazon Prime and Apple TV and Showtime and a few other places, and share about it, if you feel so inclined. And yeah, I mean, if there's any other ideas or opportunities or possibilities, things you want to connect on, ideas you have, ideas you mentioned, I do quite a bit of speaking as well, and definitely enjoy that. But yeah, whether it's with the organization, through the charity or not, I'm always down to at least have a conversation about things. Don't ever feel like, this doesn't just go for me, just generally, I think people often assume someone's just going to say no, or they're too busy or whatever. And so they're kind of sort of afraid to reach out or to bother, and they don't want to get rejected or whatever. So they just don't even ask. And that's a huge disservice to yourself and to the other person, because that person may be very interested in what you're pitching, and they may want to help, and they may want to be a part of it. And it may be exactly what they're looking for. You never know. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Chris in Chicago, you're up.
All right, Nate, it's an honor to speak with you. Our backgrounds are more similar, I think, than you'd ever know, less me not being a vet. So thank you for your service. I hold you in extreme high regard. Your story is so inspirational, and I attribute it or liken it to Pat Tillman, or for me, someone like Steve Gleason. So, it's just an honor once again to speak with you. The real question I want to ask you is what's it like to be on the Pat McAfee show? But nobody else really cares about that. So I'll ask something that will benefit the group. My similar experiences, having been an athlete, and I actually got to coach against Augie Garrido at Disch-Falk Field. So you'll know what I'm speaking about. I want to talk about or ask you about your mental health and, your experience of being a Green Beret and maybe some of the trauma that was experienced there, and certainly the concern of CTE and whatnot in football. I just had a friend who won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning and the Colts when they beat the Bears in 2006, take his own life, sadly, and they attribute it to CTE. So what's your thoughts on that altogether from a mental health perspective?
Yeah, I mean, that's a complicated question for sure. And I'm no doctor. And I know that stuff does have an effect for sure, for absolutely. But there's also, a lot of people out there that don't experience CTE, or that do experience CTE, that don't necessarily experience suicidal ideation or struggle as much with mental health. So it's interesting to explore that. What is the bigger reason? I don't know. I mean, is it the loss of purpose and brotherhood and all of these things that also go with transitioning out of sports? Or is it more the physical injury, the head trauma? It's probably both. And it's probably, the answer is typically lies somewhere in the middle, but it seems most of these people, the stories that I've heard, there was more at play than just the injury. You know what I mean? There was that as well. It probably exacerbated things and made it brought you to the place of hopelessness, because that's what that feeling must be when people make that decision. And I've lost quite a few friends. I've lost more people from the military veteran community I've lost more of them. Sorry. I've lost more of them here at home to their own hands than I had overseas when I was serving. And that's generally the narrative today, in our country. Like, through this 20-year war that we recently experienced, we didn't lose that many troops overseas as compared to prior wars, not even close. And that's good. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I mean, we have better protection. It was a different type of war. We have better life-saving capabilities now, and all of these things. But at the same time, we've experiencing an uptick in people coming home and struggling and taking their own lives. And, how much of that is attributed to the physical injuries versus mental, I don't exactly know, but I would venture to guess that all of those people, or at least most of those people, and this is my assumption or estimation, or maybe it's a bit of a it's a bit of just through so many conversations and experiences. Like, what am I trying to say? It's not data I actually have. You know what I mean? I'm not, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist, and I don't know. But I would venture to guess most of those people dealt with quite a bit of mental health struggles, and feeling like I am a burden to this world, whether that's my family or my friends or whatever. It would be better off without me. And it's not just the physical pain, of an injury or anything like that. But it's wild to see. I mean, there's other diseases like ALS. You brought up Steve Gleason. He's a really, really good friend of mine. ALS, for whatever reason, is very common in combat sports. People that play combat sports, and like, they don't understand why yet exactly. But that's wild to think about, and to wonder, like, is head trauma, is that related? One of my other heroes from the 49ers, Dwight Clark, passed away from ALS a few years ago. And I met him in 2016 or 17, and pre-diagnosis, and he looked great. And I think by 2020, he was gone. And so it's really heartbreaking to see that stuff. But I don't know. It's a very hard question. I don't exactly have the answers, but I think there is definitely correlation between both. And what we focus on at MVP, and what I definitely focus on is, those things we maybe can control a bit more, which is the focus on the mental health piece of it specifically, and how to pull each other out of these places.
Yep. So join us, guys, for that movie night with Robert Hamilton Owens, and we're going to watch One Is Too Many, which is exactly on this topic. Randy Ostrow in Florida, you're up.
Thank you for being here, Nate. My question's a little bit different. How close did you ever get to Bevo, and how big is he?
I've been right there, all up in his grill. Well, one of them. I think we're on 14 now.
15 actually, but
15, sorry.
Compared to like a SUV, same size as like a big SUV.
Yeah, he's huge. Bevo's a Longhorn mascot. that's on the sidelines for the games. So for those that don't know, yeah, no, I've seen Bevo many times, up close and personal, and yeah, he is very big. At least a VW bus. You know what I mean? So
Thank you so much.
yeah, of course.
All right, Tom Doherty.
Nate, I want to thank you. You reach out anytime I send you anything on Instagram, Born to Matter, you always respond. So thank you for that. To talk about reaching out. When you were thinking about the football thing, I'm just curious, did you try to punt or kick?
No, I played soccer growing up and I have an okay leg. I actually kicked a 47-yarder at practice once. Nobody was trying to block it and it hit the crossbar and went over. But no, I mean, those guys, they got some strong legs, like the kickers and punters, like at least at Texas. I mean, it was the next level. But no, I never did. It's funny, they're very much head cases too. I think I would have been good to do, and I would have liked the opportunity to do that and to face that challenge from the mental side, but I just didn't have the physical leg. Maybe I could have worked on it to get there, but long snapping just was the path that made sense for me. And that position opened up my sophomore year, so I started doing it. But
Nate, can we squeeze in one more question?
yes, yeah, we can do one more.
All right, Paul, you're our cleanup hitter.
Take us home, Paul.
Nate, first, just want to say thank you so much for your time and service. This has been an incredible conversation. You talked about something, how regret can be a gift, and that's been kind of like on my mind this entire conversation. For me, I look at regret as like, if you think something's too expensive, wait till you get the bill for regret. But can you kind of talk more about that reframe of really looking at regret as a gift, whereas so many people look at it as something that's crippling? And thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I think of often the people in this world will be willing to work a job they do not like for the rest of their life because they are so afraid of, whatever that maybe more competitive thing is or crazy thing is they've always wanted to do, because of the fear of either looking stupid or, I don't know, somebody's that's in their head that that's just not a thing. They can't do that. It's not possible. And they're willing to live with that wonder, and that I guess regret for the rest of their life, and continue to work a job they just hate. And that's crazy to me. And it's funny is society tells you you're crazy for going after it. You know what I mean? For fault. But I'm like, how is that crazy? That's not crazy. Crazy is like the exact opposite, doing the safe thing, sitting at the desk you don't want to be sitting at anymore. Or whatever for the rest of your life. And there's plenty of people out there that are absolutely content with, and I'm just talking about jobs specifically right now, absolutely content with doing a job that they have no feeling for and passion for, because maybe their passions are somewhere else that have nothing to do with an occupation. And that's totally great. I respect that. But if your passion has something to do with that, with what you're providing to this world and how you're making a living, and you have this thing, this dream, and you're not going for it, or at least not preparing to go for it in some way by, continuing that education or whatever it is, like, you're crazy, not the person that's going for it, that's probably going to fail. Like, they're not crazy. They're living, their life. So like, I think that's in its simplest form, like that's kind of the shift, at least for me. It's just like, you have to think about those things. You have to like examine them and sort of, sit with yourself and have honest conversations with yourself about what you actually want. Don't talk yourself into something, or be practical all the time. Like, figure and just start there. Like, what do I actually want to do? What actually gets me excited? And that can translate to other things in your life too. Personal, family, fitness, whatever it is. Like, it's all there. Same thing. But and just thinking, are these really barriers, or are these just things I think are? And once you kind of get into it and start doing it, you realize like the people in these other professions that are doing what you think you should be doing in love, they have just as many, if not more, insecurities than you do. But they're just like, they're following those fears, you know, instead of letting them overwhelm ourselves. So, yeah.
Nate, this has been an absolutely incredible hour. I can't thank you enough. You're an outlier's outlier. What you've packed into 42 years, I think, of life is incredible. And you really live kind of, our mantra is anybody can be ordinary, but we all have the power to choose to be extraordinary. And you've made the choice to live an extraordinary life, and to lay it all out here as an example to everybody is a huge gift. So thank you, guys. Support Nate in all that he's doing. He's doing some great stuff. Like I just can't wait to kind of see what he's up to next. Support him in any way that you can. Watch the movie, donate to MVP. All the links will be in here, and we'll send out more information to everybody in the community. But Nate, man, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it too. Thanks for
You got it.
having me. God bless you.
Thanks, Nate.